Mantra number 2 and 3. Kamanyah kamayate manyamanaha. Kamanyah kamayate manyamanaha. Sakamabhirjayate tatra tatra. Sakamabhirjayate tatra tatra. Paryapta kamasya kritatmanastu. Paryapta kamasya kritatmanastu. Ihaiva sarve praviliyanti kamaha. Ihaiva sarve praviliyanti kamaha. Mantra number 3. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha. Na medhayana bahuna shrutena. Na medhayana bahuna shrutena. Yame vaishe vrunute tena labhyaha. Yame vaisha vrunute tena labhyaha. Tasyaisha atma vivrunute tanum swam. Tasyaisha atma vivrunute tanum swam. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha. Na medhayana bahuna shrutena. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha. Na medhayana bahuna shrutena. Yame vaisha vrunute tena labhyaha. Tasyaisha atma vivrunute tanum swam. Yame vaisha vrunute tena labhyaha. Tasyaisha atma vivrunute tanum swam. Ayam atma na labhyaha. This self is not gained. In the earlier mantra, it was said that a wise person fulfills all the desires simultaneously. It gets fulfilled as though, because there is nothing left to be desired. For two reasons. That thing can be desired if I don't have. I being the substratum of the entire creation, Adhishtanam, there is nothing away from me. And that substratum being Ananda Swarupa, Purnananda Swarupa. And therefore I don't need anything to be happy. Therefore he says, Kritatmanastu, Paryapta Kamastu, Ihaiva, while living itself. Sarve kamaha praviliyante. All the desires can resolve. No more desires. The state of, you can say, state of desirelessness. I have explained you this. What does it mean by state of desirelessness? Now, you see, lastly, we saw yesterday, while introducing this mantra, that one is never bound, nor one is away from the self, the consciousness. The sense of bondage is just a notion, is a feeling caused by ignorance. And therefore, the self or the freedom should not be desired at all, really speaking. But because of ignorance, there is a desire for freedom. Freedom from bondage. If the bondage was real, if the self, what is bondage? Aham Dukhi. If that Aham Dukhi was real, you can never be free from it. Because that is your real nature. How can fire be free from heat because that is its nature. It cannot be away from. It's only notion. Aham dukhi. That means the search for happiness is nothing but the search for the self, and that is fulfilled only by gaining the knowledge. Now, this knowledge, you cannot have it accidentally. Somehow chamatkara took place. I suddenly saw the Atma. I suddenly realized somebody did Shaktipada, and all kinds of stories or notions are floating around in this spiritual world. Why? Because it is always revealing. That you meet with the self accidentally is possible if there is that so-called self that you want to meet with is away from you. It is manifesting every moment. Aham, that there is not a single moment, not a single time, not a place, nor a situation. Desha kala vastu nasti yatra aham nasmi. There is no time, no place, no experience, no situation where I am not there. I am always there. That is what I am talking about. So you cannot have an accidental knowledge to gain the self. How to gain the self? That is told here in the next mantra. Now when I know the self, I become fulfilled. Kamanya kamayate manyamanaha prapta jayate tatra tatra etc. I can gain all the kamas etc. has been said. So that result, the phalam or the moksha that I want is infinite, and therefore effort also should be accordingly. As they say, adhikasya prapti arthe adhikam phalam. Adhikasya prapti arthe adhikam yatna kartavya. More you want, you have to put in more efforts. Like you want more percentage in the school, or you want more profit in the company, or you want to improve your performance in the company, you have to put in more efforts. As simple as that. How much efforts are necessary to gain the self? And what kind of efforts are necessary? And what kind of efforts are not necessary? That is also important. Whole teaching involves a lot of negation. Because you have to negate the vachyartha. You have to negate the conventional meaning. And you have to see the implied meaning. That is being enumerated here in this mantra. I am Atma, this self, about which we have been talking about. Which the first mantra, Saveda etat paramam dhama yatra vishwam nihitam bhati shubram, the first mantra, which is a substratum of the entire creation, that which is a shukram, always pure. Having known that, ativartanti dhiraha, having known the self, you cross over the samsara. In the previous mantra, kamanya kamayate manyavanaha, sakama vir jayate tatra tatra. Paryapta kamasya kritatmanastu ihaiva sarve praviliyante kama. That you become free from any desire. You get total fulfillment. That self, Esha Atma, that we have been talking, knowing which you become free from samsara, knowing which you get the total fulfillment, knowing which you know that you are the substratum of the entire creation, knowing which you know that you are Nitya Shubram, etc. That Esha Atma, that self. Na pravachanena labhya. You cannot gain the self by pravachana. Pravachana here primarily means swadhyaya. We'll see, explain the meaning. Don't translate pravachana as a Hindi or Gujarati meaning. Pravachana means lecture. That's not a meaning here. Na medhaya labhya. Medha means memory. Grantha avadharana shakti medha. Capacity to retain, capacity to hold the Shastra. You cannot gain it by Medha Shakti. Nayamatma pravachanena labhya na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. Not by studying various disciplines of knowledge. Shruta doesn't mean listening. Studying. I'll explain why this meaning is being given. Then how it is gained? The negation is done here. How you cannot know, how you cannot gain, then it is telling how you gain. Yama eva esha vrunute. Yame vaisha vrunute. Esha sadak, the seeker. Yam, that esha yam that seeker. That seeker. The one who, this person, esha vrunute, one who chooses the self. Tena labhya. He gains the self. So whom this person chooses to know gains the self. But the self is gained by that person. Tena labhya. It is third case, by that person it is gained. One who chooses to gain or know, by that person self is gained. And tasya, to him only. Esha atma, this self, vivrunute tanum swam. It reveals. Vivrunute means reveals. Tanum means nature. Swam means one's own nature. The one who has chosen the self, to that person, self reveals its nature. Okay, this is translation. Here also you need lakshya. Here also you need to understand things little properly. Okay, now look at this. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha. Shankaracharya ji says, Veda Shastra Bahulyan, Veda Shastra Adhyayana Bahulyena. That is a pravachanam. What is pravachanam? By mere study of Veda Shastra. By having lot of study about Veda Shastra. Okay? Veda Shastra Adhyayana Bahulyena. By means to know the self is not mere study of Vedas. Now remember, this is a reference to what? Remember, this is the Vedic times. The society was different. If I say today, whole society is Artha Kama Pradhana. They lived a dharmic life and they were Moksha Pradhana. And they followed the Vedic injunctions. There is a Vedic injunctions that every individual Hindu must study its own Veda. That is what is your Gotra, to which you belong. And that is the Gotra Pravartaka Rishi, that Rishi. Certain mantras were revealed to him. And since we belong to this Gotra, to that lineage of that beginning from that Rishi, we are supposed to remember those Vedas, memorize those Vedas. There is an injunction, Swadhyayaha Adhyetavyaha. One must do Swadhyaya day. Remember, this is a problem of vernacular interpretation, popular interpretation. Swadhyaya is not a group. Swadhyaya Parivar. There was one. We are not talking about that Parivar. The original meaning of the Swadhyaya is Vedadhyaya. And this mantra is there. Swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pravaditavyam. Then comes Matrudevo Bhava. Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, etc. And then earlier also he says, one must have Swadhyaya in one's life. Swadhyaya, commitment to Swadhyaya means commitment to recitation and memorization of one's Veda. That was mandatory. And those of them, by the way, this is just an information. You will find these surnames in India. Dvivedi, Trivedi, Chaturvedi. Dvivedi is a title. When the person has studied two Vedas, has memorized two Vedas, has learned two Vedas. Trivedi, three means three. He has studied three Vedas. Chaturvedi, he has studied four Vedas. It's a big title. To remember, memorize and study one Veda itself was almost enough for consuming one's birth. Unless you are extraordinarily brilliant, then you become Dvivedi and Trivedi. Did you notice? There is no title called Ekavedi. He has studied one Veda. Because it was minimum mandatory requirement. You cannot be Ekavedi. Trivedi means their ancestors, somebody in the lineage must have studied three Vedas. Big thing he or she must have done, that person. And that was given a title, and they continue the title, not even knowing how many Vedas are there. I have seen those Chaturvedis and Trivedis and Dvivedis. If you ask them which Veda you belong to, what do you mean, Swami? I belong to UP Saharanpur. I am telling you which Veda. He doesn't know. The fellow is Trivedi. I met that Trivedi. And I am sure if you ask in Gujarat there are so many Trivedis. If you ask them, and Dvivedi and Chaturvedis are less, you will find in north of India. But they themselves don't know. It's a title, Dvivedi. So I have studied two Vedas, and that was a mandatory. One has to study. By merely repeating the Vedas, by merely memorizing the Vedas, you don't get the self. Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhya. Why? You may know the mantras, because Upanishad is a part of Veda. They may chant the Veda, but they don't understand the meaning of the mantras, Lakshartha, and therefore, unless you know the meaning of the mantra, self-ignorance doesn't go. As Swamiji would say, it will not put a dent in ignorance also. Forget about finishing. There will not be a small dent in ignorance by merely chanting Veda. However, one should note that. Don't underestimate or don't look down upon studying of a Veda as something useless. No, it is necessary. But understand, it is a means, not an end in itself. That's all the Tatparya is. In Shastra, whenever something is censured, whenever some limitations of something is shown, it doesn't mean that it is bad per se. The idea of the Shastra is, it is a means, not an end. Like Bhajagovindam, if you listen that, many people tell this. Kate kanta kaste putraha, kate kanta kaste putraha, samsaro yamativa vichitraha, kasyatvam kahakutayatah, tattvam chintayatadiha pradaha. Who is wife and who is son, and they are useless, they say. There is a mantra. Yavat vitto parth, as long as you have money and this, like, so there is some remark about money. Money is bad. This is not. This is all shallow thinking. Our Guruji is great who doesn't touch money. Money per se is inert. And it is mithya, that 100 rupee bill or 200 rupees or 2000 rupee note, what we call in India, is just a mutual arrangement. Is that piece of paper, that particular color, and with the stamp of the government decided that this will have a buying power worth 200, worth 2000 rupees. That's why it become money. Otherwise, it's a piece of paper. Suddenly they declared demonetized. All your 500 rupees and 1000 rupees note become piece of paper. We have seen the videos, people smoking it out. They said that he blew it out, he burnt it out because it's a piece of paper. Even then, what it means to say is money is necessary for Vyavhara. It is a means, not an end. Marriage is a means, not an end. Everything is a means for your journey towards moksha. Dharma itself is a means. So studying Veda or Pravachana is important. But then by itself, ignorance will not be removed. And by itself, you will not discover the self that is Ananda. The person can be erudite scholar, maybe great reciter. You should meet those panditas, They can chant this. Tremendous memory power. But that self is not it. And therefore he says, Na medhaya. By remembering, by memory, that's a very blessings. That we have memory is a blessings. It's a grace. In the 15th chapter, Bhagavan says, Matta smrutir gnanam apohanam. Capacity to remember is a blessing. More so, remember at a right time, at a right place, in a right situation. That is the greatest blessing. But to have memory, you grow because of memory. Past experiences you learn, and then you analyze and grow. Memory is a blessing. And I don't know how many TB memories there. Not GB, but TBs. It is not like your pen, some thousand, when you put something more than rest, you have to erase previous one, and then it will come. Without erasing, and what a creation. It erases by itself also. What is redundant, some auto mode program is there, so it is erased. You don't remember all the breakfast and lunch and dinner that you did in 1995 onwards, when you went to US or whenever, whatever you did. It just gets out. Useless memory. Sometimes some people, and that capacity to remember is stretchable. More you work, more you remember. He says, Namedaya. So there are some people who commit to just memorization. That is a reason, one reason also, because in our culture, this Veda were called Shruti. There were no piece of paper. 1 or 2 million years ago, we are talking about 10, 15 million years back. The whole teaching was done verbally. And the student used to memorize, understand, and thereby later on communicate to his students. So it is called Shruti, Shravanena. Therefore, memory is a part of it. You require memory. I remember when I went to ashram, I was already 25 plus, and then we are supposed to learn Vedas, chanting some basic minimum, Purusuktam, Rudram, etc., etc. We had one Pandit from Tirupati, Pathshala. Those time books were available. We had bought those books, Rudra book and Purusukta book and Taittiriya Upanishad and Mahanarayana, all that we had it. He said, nothing doing, keep the books aside. I chant, you listen and repeat twice. That is how teaching is. I chant, repeat twice. Matru Devo Bhava. Then student says, Matru Devo Bhava, Matru Devo Bhava, then Pitru Devo Bhava, then Pitru twice. That's how we had to remember. It was a part of it. There was a great emphasis put on memory. That's why we have this rich, you can say almost unquantifiably rich heritage of wisdom and knowledge. Mahabharata was memorized. That's how we have the book here today. 1 lakh verses. All these Puranas were memorized. All the Shastras, Ramayana, history were memorized. Vedas were memorized. Not only this, but the Tikas also were memorized. Tikas, Bhashyas and whatever, all these days. Panini Sutras were memorized. Anuvrittis were memorized. There was a great emphasis on memory, remembering. So it says, but then it says the limitation. And therefore there is a value today to people who commit to memorizing. Gita chanting classes, people memorize the whole Gita. Then different stotra parayana, they memorize and do it. So memory per se is not looked low or bad. The point is, by memorizing the text, you don't remove the self-ignorance. That's all the point is. You cannot annihilate the self-ignorant. Mere medha is not enough to destroy the self-ignorance and gain the self. That's all it will. In spite of having maximum memory, ignorance will continue. There are people who are Shatavadhani, means Ardha Shatavadhani. They will ask 50 people to ask him a question. And he will answer one by one. What a memory. But that kind of memory, as I use the Swamiji's word, will not put even a small scratch or a dent in ignorance. Nayamatma pravachanena na medhaya na bahuna shrute. As just now I told you, Shastras were learned by listening. Bahuna shrutena means by listening, or therefore the meaning is Bahuna shrutena means by studying the various disciplines of knowledge. There are some genius who commit to various disciplines of knowledge, gain the knowledge. There are so many Shastras. I have one student here in Ahmedabad. He's a doctor. I think he's ophthalmo or anesthesia. No, maybe something super special. He's a lawyer as well. He's a chartered accountant as well. And he's a journalist as well. He studied. He has some 8 to 10 degrees with him. Puja Swamiji had one Dr. Jichkar, his student. He passed away about 2 decades ago. He had a maximum number of degrees available in India. Maximum. He had a Guinness Book of Records. What I am saying, that is Bahuna Shrutena. By studying various texts, ignorance will not go. You can be a scholar, but you cannot become wise. You continue to be otherwise. That if I connect you to the beginning of this Upanishad, Dve vidye veditavya parachaiva aparachaiva. any amount of aparavidya will not have any impact on paravidya agnana. The ignorance about oneself will not be impacted by any amount of erudition, scholarship, or knowledge of different shastras. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha na bahuna shrutena. You can also interpret by doing lot of listening to Vedanta Shastra, you cannot do. Please understand. You find there are two contradictory statements in Shastra. You know, that famous mantra I tell you, that Yajnavalkya Maitreyi Samvad, you know, Atma Vare Drashtavyaha Shrotavyaha Mantavyaha Nididhyasitam. You must listen to Shatma. You must listen to Upanishad. And now here it says, you cannot know it by listening. Again, same Shastra says, Mandukyam eva alam mumukshuna moksha siddhe. That Mandukya Upanishad is enough. But if you don't get knowledge, then study Ekadash, 11 Upanishad. Listen. Still you don't get, there is a 32 Upanishad. Listen. If you don't get knowledge, then listen to 108 Upanishad. Suppose I don't get after 108, repeat the cycle. Start from Mandukya, it says that. So it is telling that you should listen. There is another Vakya, Paunah Paunena Shravanam Kuryat. Do listening again and again. And here it says, Na Bahuna Shrutena. By listening again and again, you don't get the self. Why? This context is different. The implied meaning is different. Shravanam is a means, but at the same time, lot of listening is not the means. What does it mean? Two things. Simply listening Shastra from a teacher who is not Shrotriya is not going to work. The teacher who doesn't know how to communicate. From that teacher, you must study nth number of Shastras. It is not going to work. Secondly, having studied from a teacher, you have to internalize this knowledge. I enjoy Swamiji your classes. But you have to connect to yourself. Therefore, there are some professional shrotas. You need to do mananam, nididhyas. Make the knowledge clear and assimilate that knowledge, own that knowledge. If that is not done, when the antakarana is not ready, you may keep listening, nothing will work. Our example is Dhritarashtra. He heard the whole Gita. Arjuna also heard, but nothing happened. So unless you are ready for it, in terms of antakarana shuddhi and shraddha, and in terms of internalizing, not just listening passively. One has to be active listener in terms of seeing the truth of the teacher's statement in my life with reference to myself. When we were studying, we were given folding table, small table, just little bigger the size of your laptop, double the size you can say. But the legs would fold in. It will become just a plank of wood. So we used to have one in the beginning, one, then letter two. So we have to carry that to the room, and so that we can study in the room and then bring it to the class. On that table, one of the brahmachari had with that something sharp but carved this sentence. And it carved in such a way on the left, when you look at the table on the left top corner, because there you write, you generally don't keep the note or pen there. It's clean. He used to, while teaching, he used to see that sentence again and again. He has carved that. You know what was the sentence? Swamiji is talking about me. Swamiji is talking about me. Unless you connect to that me, obtaining me, that me which is revealed by Swamiji, unless I connect to myself, knowledge will not take place. And having connected, one has to change. By merely listening, enjoy. People have come to tell us, Swamiji, you are a very light speaker. You come out with a very good jokes. That's how, you are a good storyteller. These are all compliments were given to Puja Swamiji. I have heard that. That's not listening. Na atma pravachane na lapya na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. How it is gained? Listen this. Yeme vaishap vrunute. By one, he is gained by yam, that person. One who chooses the Atma. Tena labhya means one who chooses the self. Self is gained by that person. Eshaha means Atma. Yama means the seeker who chooses one. What does it mean by chooses one? As we call it in popular terms, one who has a mokshecha. Okay? One who has a desire for moksha. Listen this carefully. Shruti doesn't say yam esha ichhate tena labhya. The verb is vrunute. And again it uses tasyeisha vivrunute tanusva. You know, vrunute means what? Varnam karoti. What is varnam? Indians will understand. We had a custom or a system, I would say, of swayamvara. A girl had a freedom to choose the man she wants. She used to set the standards. And father used to organize an event so that the possible bridegrooms are available. Draupadi made these terms to her father. And she had a courage in that assembly, where who's who was there, because she was Miss Universe of that time. Her description, everybody coveted. And this woman had on her terms. And in presence of everybody says, I shall not marry this Karna. And nobody had argued against. Neither Karna nor her father. You gave this condition and this fellow is now fulfilling. Why you are changing? I can change. It's my Varnam. Anyway, that is why Swayamvara, self-choosing. we translate that. No. But there is another meaning, deeper meaning. She had a varamala. She had a mala in her hand. And whomsoever gets that in his neck, that means this is a selected by me and I will marry her. What is Vrunute? She does varanam of a person, means exclusion of everyone. That is varanam. Yame vaisha vrunute, one who seeks the self at the exclusion of all desires. That means mokshecha is the priority. That is called varanam. Please understand. It is not one among many desires. And it is a desire for that thing only and only. That is why the word varanam is used. In other words, in a modern language, 100+% commitment. બળદિયાને પૂછણ આંબળી અને થોડુંક હાલે એમ લોકોને 5 વાર મેસેજ મૂકો ત્યાર પાછા ક્લાસમાં અચાનક દેખાય. That is not varanam. You are wasting away the priceless human birth that you have for petty things. You are missing infinitude, that is you. And therefore loss is also infinite. That is immaturity. And they always have an excuse. Like a child would give away the diamond-studded golden ring to a thug who just offers him a chocolate. Just gives away. Doesn't know the worth of this thing that he has. We don't know the worth of the human birth that we have. You're bartering. Even that diamond-studded golden ring has some limit, price limit. Human birth is just priceless. Just imagine statistical probability. 84 lakhs of births, among that you get this. And we fight for petty things, we talk petty things, we meddle in petty things. What is this? No priority for study. Swamiji, your time doesn't match me. This is the time when I have to go for a walk. Idiot. You have been walking through Janmas and you will continue. Study this. In other words, you have to prioritize your life. That is what I see is missing, and therefore there is no commitment. I keep telling them, okay, this is a time it clashes, but listen to YouTube. No, I don't like discontinuity. Idiot excuse. One has to do it. That is called varanam. The Shastra gives an example. What kind of varanam? This Babaji, this sadhu had a big jata, matted locks. He was a great tapasvi, sitting in his kutia. And obviously, when if you have long hairs, and that to a sadhu, that means they are neither washed or not oiled. You don't apply shampoos and all that. It doesn't, nothing was available. They just dip it in Ganga and it is dried and day is over. Somehow one Chalami fellow came to see him and the spark from the Chalam went to his hair. This Mahatma had taken a vow that I will drink only Ganga Jalam. nothing else. He was adhering to. Kutia was there on the bank of Ganges, but being summer, Ganges was little away, 300, 400 meters away, and the hairs are dried, it will just catch the fire like this. When the fire is there, hairs are on fire, what that person will do? Nothing but dip the hair in whatever water available. Even if it is a sewage water, he won't mind. We'll wash it, but let me extinguish the fire. That commitment should be there. That when I studied this Yaksha Prashna while we were in ashram, when Yudhishthira and Pandavas were thirsty, and Draupadi was the most thirsty, and they found out they climbed the treetop and found out there is so many birds chirping on this particular direction to this distance. That means there must be water source. That is how that was their Google, to identify water. So the Nakul went and Sadeva went and Bhima, Arjuna went and Bhima went. Nobody came back. Finally, Yudhishthira went to that lake and he was about to drink water and some sound came from invisible sound. I mean, sound was heard. Listen, I mean, it could be heard, but who spoke was invisible. He said, there was Yaksha. He said, this is my lake. It is special water, but I let you drink only if you answer my question satisfactorily. And without answering the question satisfactorily, if you drink, you also will become like those, your brothers, that fainted, that swooned. You should ask, tell me. Beginning, he asked the question, what is a wonder? Sunrise is a wonder. Sunset is a wonder. Moon is a wonder. This forest is wonder. Flowers are wonder. Everything. Yudhishthira said, every day people are dying. Kim Ashcharyam. This is Ashcharyam. They see and know that their relatives are dying, but still the person takes it for granted. Abhi to der hai. There is still time to go for me to go. Unnecessarily, this mobile, talking, watching videos, forwarding the videos. In India, there's a Taja. What is fresh video? I don't know. Even the joke, there's a Taja. Jaldi forward karo. They say, forward it quickly. What is the urgency of it? Try. Don't use WhatsApp for one day. Nothing is going to happen. Whiling away the time, wasting the time. That is Varanam. Clarity about what I should be doing. Clarity about what I am doing, which is useless. Gujarati લોકો 25-50 વર્ષ નોકરી ધંધો કરે, ખૂબ પૈસા કમાય, ખૂબ મહેનત કરી, અને પછી ઘર ખાલી કરે ને તો 2 ખટારા ભરીને સામાન, બસ આ એની જિંદગીનું સરવૈ. And 5-25 તોલા સોનું હોય. That's all you earn. Some gold and few furniture and few cupboards, which your children don't want it to see. What is this? You're buttering your life for this petty thing. Varanam means this is the priority for me. I must commit to it. That is called Varanam. One who does Varanam, tasyaisa labhyate atma. Tasyaisa vimurte tanusva. Please understand, Varanam means one more thing also. Everybody is seeking atma. Freedom. Who doesn't want? Each one of us is seeking freedom. Now, some punya, somebody feels, I am wasting time. That's a vairagya. Priority changes. They tell, What a prayer. Some Swamiji guest comes to our house in the evening. Ask the guest to listen the class. You are doing great seva to Bandhavas. If it clicks to him, he will be right on the right path. And if it doesn't click, he will not come next time. You continue. Why are you sacrificing your moksha yatra for some guest, useless guest? You need an excuse. Anyway, coming back to this, that suddenly some vairagya comes. Vairagya means that sense of discomfort with reference to what I am doing. Wants to do something new. I am not at peace with myself. I need to do something. I have told this earlier also. That time this person is most gullible. Anything out of the box he is willing to do and pursue. So then I want moksha. Or in a very unclear way they say, I want Bhagavan. I want Bhagavan. They have these notions. To want Bhagavan is one thing, and to appreciate that I have to know Bhagavan is quite different. Means conversion of a mumukshu to jignasu. That is called varanam. Okay, yame vaisha vrunute tasyaisa vivrunute tadum sva. Okay. So that person in Sanskrit is called akama. No other desire than this. To know the self. There is a clarity. Varanam means clarity. That the means for gaining moksha, means for gaining self is Guru Mukha Shravanam. Studying the Shastra from a competent teacher. So this desire for moksha is converted into desire for knowledge. Arjuna says, Yat Shreyasyat Nishchitam Bruhi Tanme. Please tell me. Please teach me Shreyas. That's all I want. Yame Vaisha Vrunute Tasyaisha Vivrunute Tvanum Sva. To him alone, the self reveals its own nature. This again is contradicted. Now, just now I told you in the beginning of the class, self is self-revealing, self-evident, self-existing fact. Self is always revealing itself. How does it reveal itself? When you have a competent teacher and when you have a desire, it reveals itself as Brahman. Aham asmi, aham bhami, everybody knows. I am, and I shine. I know I am. You don't need that. You don't need teacher to tell you that you are there. I know I am, and I know I am a sentient being. But that sentient being, that I am, that I know I am, is Parabrahma. Is Jagat Karanam. Is Asanga. That is revealing that way. If the desire to know is so strong, self will be revealed to you. In a sense, you will discover your true nature, which is Purnatva, which is Anand, which is infinite. That is you, that will be revealed. And then, it says, another meaning also is there. Yame Vaisha Vrunute. Esha Vrunute means this teacher chooses. To him alone this knowledge takes place. What does it mean? Here, Esha means not Atma, Esha means teacher. That's the one teacher who chooses the student. means he is willing to teach. Pravachana, Medha, Shravana, etc. won't work for second reason also. The person may memorize whole Gita. I remember we used to do that. Nowadays I don't remember. The practice is gone. I used to remember the whole, some few chapters of Gita, almost whole, from first to last and last to first. Reverse and forward and backward, both. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nai Sitva Nainam Vimuhyati Sitva Asyamanta Kalepi Brahma Nirvanam Ruchati. Then that's the last verse. Previous Vihaya Kaman Yes Sarvan Pumasharati Nispa Nirmo Nirahankara Satanti. Then again Apuryamana Machala Pradesh. Like that we used to remember. Point is, one may have this. One may have a jignasa. But unless you have a competent teacher to teach, the one who knows how to handle the pramana. First Varnam is to recognize that Vedanto Nama Upanishad Pramana, conversion of Mumukshu into Jignasu. And the Jignasu should get a right teacher who knows how to handle methodology of teaching. Please understand. You cannot study this by yourself. You need a teacher. Today we'll study Swami. You tell me which is the best Gita commentary available. Today only one sample piece had come. I kept telling him, you have to listen to Shastra. No, I'll study, I'll understand. I'm that way very sharp. I've done. Then I told you should know certain basic terminology. Then you study. No, I will understand. No, I will. Tell me which Gita to buy. I gave it a papam. I cannot change that into punya. So I said, okay, I'll get you the address, you buy. The Gita home study book, you buy and study. You know why? Just listen this. I'll explain. I have explained quite a few times. Explain you further. There are so many words in day-to-day life. We use them. Cell phone or mobile or a car or a house or bag, shirt, pant. Similarly, consciousness, eternal, all-pervasive. Doesn't make any sense. Understand? These shabdas that are used for Atma or Brahman, they are not like the one mobile and car and a house and shirt and a pant like that. You cannot, because every word has a limited meaning. That limited meaning has to be negated. To understand what exactly consciousness is, the words needs to be unfolded by building up the context, building up the connection of that word with the verse, connection of that word with the chapter, connection of the chapter, words and the verse and the chapter with the whole text. Holistically, you have to look at it. Therefore, there is a teacher that is necessary, a Shrotriya, competent teacher who can handle the Shastras. You may keep listening from a Ashrotriya Acharya, na bahuna Ashrotriya, it will not work. You need a teacher. Every word has a limited meaning. And understand this consciousness or Atma or Brahma or Sakshi or Chidananda Rupa Shiva is not an object like a table and a mobile and a car and a cloth is not one of them. It is you and it is everything. Nothing is away from that consciousness. That is, nothing is away from Sakshi. Nothing is away from me, the Chidananda Rupa Shiva. You need a teacher to make you see this, who can unfold it in a proper context. The student must have attention proper to understand. Otherwise, if teacher doesn't know, and they make bhajans out of eternity, fraternity, maternity, all kinds of bhajan they make. I am bliss, 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 ever conscious, 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 existence, existence, existence. They sing like that. It doesn't make any sense. It is, I remember I had a student in Baroda. Good, I think I remember her. I can search for her. She was a very regular student. Whenever I used to conduct camp and she would come to that and all that. She later on, her husband was attached to some guru. And then she took her husband forced her to take, because no, my guru is better, you have to follow. Our children, you cannot take my children to your guru. She had a sweet little child, daughter and a son. And then that man took, and of course, I couldn't go, but I got to Rajkot Ashram and Acharya Sabha, and I have never seen her. But this I remember. Then took the daughter for Diksha on Guru Purnima. That Guru gave him mantra, Soham, Soham, Soham. The girl was supposed to do 5 malas, Soham, Soham, Soham. Saha Aham. That consciousness is me. That Param Brahma is me. That's a meaning. That girl of 10-year-old and 7-year-old boy doing 5 malas, Soham, 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 Soham. And that too, when they have to go do the mala before going to school. Som, 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 som. Soham became Som. I happened to go for Bhiksha. He said, both of them asked, Swamiji, what is this Som? I was wondering, what is that? Then finally I digged into it and there's what is the meaning of Soham? Keep repeating. You need a teacher to unfold how Saha equal to Aham. Mathematics, B is equal to a how. Therefore, Yama Varunute, the teacher who teaches, and the student who chooses the right Shrotri Acharya, to that student only the self is. Most simple thing is knowledge. Self-knowledge. Because it is you. And the most difficult is also self-knowledge. For 2 reasons. If you are not ready for it, or you are stuck with the guru, doesn't know how to communicate. They create more confusions. They give all slogans. And we will go for it. It doesn't work that way. You have to see through and through meaning of it. Therefore, it's when to person whom teacher selects means willing to teach. That fellow alone can gain the knowledge. Yame Vaisha Brunute Tassaisha Vivrunute Tanum Swam. To him the self reveals itself as what? Jagatkar. Not Jetalal Popatla. I am the cause of the entire creation. I am the substratum of the entire creation. That is revelation. That self is revealed like this. Yame Vaisha Vrunute Tasseisha Atma Vivrunute Tanum Swam. We'll continue next weekend. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Namaste. We'll see you on